Hello and welcome to the second season of the Good Values Podcast. Now, in the first season, I mainly talked to my friends and people who I met at university, and I was fortunate enough to meet a few people through connections through those friends. So I had a couple of guests who I hadn't met before. Now, in this season, I've been trying to contact a lot of the people who inspired my artwork through Instagram. Now, it takes a long time, and I get about one response per 10 requests. But that's just the nature of, requesting for conversations with people. I've been very, very fortunate in this regard. And for the first guest of the second season, I have the fantastic illustrator and comic book artist, Jared Muralt. So here's my conversation with him. Enjoy. Would you mind introducing yourself for the audience, please?
In my language, we say Jared Muralt, which is Berndeutsch, like a specific dialect in Swiss German. Jared Muralt, I think that's right. I'm an illustrator, or much more a comic book artist. I became a comic book artist the past couple of years. I would say a professional comic book artist. I'm actually self-taught. I went 1 year to art school, which was kind of like a basic class, just for 1 year. And before that, I learned the profession of interior designer. And after my I worked for 6 years as an interior designer, and then during that period, I got the chance from the company I worked for to do some illustrations, like designs for the windows, or for specific season, maybe winter season. Then, and there was not just one store; it was like a group of stores, like several stores, and they all used then those illustrations to have a similar look. Like, So this is how I realized I can draw and I can get paid for that. And I quit that job when I was 23 years old, or 22. And I became became an illustrator. I found a graphic design studio. They had one room or one space free, and I rented that space, and they gave me some illustration jobs for graphic and advertisement studios, and I worked for advertisement for about 2-3 years, and then I've met two other guys who were graphic designers and illustrators, and they worked more for not for advertisement, but more for cultural stuff, like concert posters and stuff like that. And since I worked a lot for the advertisement, it was more like money jobs, and they had more like the cultural jobs. So it was a good mix. I had the chance to do concert posters as well, and they had the chance to do more like money jobs. And we built, we came up with this idea of founding this our own graphic design illustration studio called BlackYard. And that's what we did. We did a lot of gig posters, and this is how everything like combining the illustration and typography and stuff like that.
So being as you are self-taught,
yeah,
how did you establish your color scheme? Because it seems to me as though you've had very identifiable palettes that you
really.
I feel as, I mean, maybe it's just me, but well, actually, it's not just me. There's been a couple of people who've said that when they look at your work, they see an influence from, say, Tintin or something like that, as far as the colors, which is really appealing to a lot of people who I'm friends with, because it's just such a beautiful and kind of restful palette of colors that, you know, aren't too aggressive or out there or, you know, kind of conflicting and challenging. They're very restful, pleasant colors to look at, and they really work really nicely. Obviously, you're expanding more in the fall, where I can see that you are getting muddier colors in there depending on the actual environment and atmosphere. But I think your work is initially recognizable. All the aquatic work that, you know, did a lot of seascapes and did a lot of beautiful colored work where it's very, you know, kind of almost pastel colors. Does this ring true to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pastel colors. It's something that's really appealing to me. It's really hard to come up with an explanation how.
That develops.
It's basically it's just a feeling, and then I do most of the colors in Photoshop. Actually, I do the line work by hand, and but the colors are all mostly Photoshop, and it's a lot of before I have a result, a finished drawing. There are like hundreds of different tests, color tests. You know, like
Really?
it also takes me like if, for example, a comic page takes me half a day or a day for all the sketches and pencil work, and then another day for the ink work, and almost 2 days for the color. The color work, it's really time consuming.
So that's really interesting. So, I mean, how much? So, if you're saying the pencil, is this for a page? Are you talking about a page a day and then a page of inking for the next day?
Yes.
And then it takes twice as much. Did you say twice as much to do the coloring?
Yeah, like just 2 days. Like the coloring process takes about the same time like sketches and ink together. It's probably because the pages are really detailed, and to color all the details, not I mean just to flat the details, you know, like to flat the whole page. That's a really time consuming process, which I've outsourced by now. And what I now do is just the decision, like the lights and the shadows and the whole color mood, but not the basic flats. I'm not doing that anymore, because I'm saving myself a day, which is really to me, time is really important when you work in comics. It's to save time. That's and I mean, doing the flat colors, that's not a creative process, so I can outsource it and pay someone to do that, which I'm absolutely fine and really grateful to have someone who does that for me.
Do you give them an outline of your preference, or a palette, or a swatch, I should say, of your palette?
Yeah. I mean, like the characters, they have their colors, and I mean, in the end, sometimes it happens that I get the full colored flat page, and I put on like those mood layers, the color mood layers, and then the original colors are barely recognizable. Sometimes then it goes really into muddy colors, and in the end, all the work of the flatter was literally for nothing, but still it shines through a little bit, and that's what I think makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Like watercolor, I suppose. It's a series of
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can compare it to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Initially, when I found you, I think I was mainly seeing a lot of ships, and it's mainly maybe it was leading up to the Hell Ship comic you released, and that's where I found you. I think was when you were doing a lot of portraits, and like a lot of the stuff which I found in this 2014 book of yours as well, where you do a lot of different portraits. I think from imagination. There's a couple in there which I recognize who they are, as far as I know that you've got them from a certain person. But I think some of them look as though you're drawing from imagination. I think it could be a mixture. Am I right in thinking that you mixed?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But as far as the ships go, is that because I didn't notice when I looked up your location where you are, I didn't notice a big shipyard. So where do you get your reference from, or where does it come from?
I have been a ship fan or fanatic since like I could build ships my own, like models and stuff. Like I it was always really I almost got emotional when I see a ship. And still to this day, it's something really. I mean, a ship, it's like a world for its own, you know, like on the ocean, it's like isolated. Yeah, it's an isolated world in itself somehow. That's, I mean, it needs like fuel, but you also need food, water, like everything is you need to survive. It's there, you know, it's like, because you're on, it's like a spaceship where you're on your way to the place you want to go, and you carry everything with you that you need. It's and it's also in the middle of nature, you know, like it's something, it's not connected, it's totally unconnected to everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it makes so interesting to me. Like it almost feels like home, but it's not. It's like every ship can be a home. Like, yeah, it's really difficult to explain.
It felt as though, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
I was just going to say, I remembered seeing a clip, and this is years ago, so I was going to guess it'd be around 2017. I could be wrong there. That you'd uploaded a video of you drawing a ship, and it was so second nature. There was no hesitation to the structure of the ship, so it just felt as though you'd drawn it so many times. I remember thinking, I need to do this myself, because I'm in such admiration of any artist who knows something so well they no longer need the reference. And I could see you weren't using a reference because of how quickly you were putting down the structure of the curvature and the different elements. I don't even know what you call these different elements of the structure of this ship, but it was just a beautiful thing to see form, because it was so, it was such a muscle memory. You could see you actually earned. Yeah. So that was something which I was curious, as with you being self-taught as well. And there's a few questions that I want to ask. I suppose the question I'm trying to ask is, did this start before art school, that you were drawing ships and, you know, in the model? It was, yeah?
Yeah. From I have some ship drawings just from the beginning, when I was able to hold a pen. And I remember I do have some paper sheets which are like taped together to make them longer, you know. And then I drew the ship all over those sheets quite early, actually. And I remember when I was about 5 years old, my mother took me to India for 3 months. We spent 3 months there, and spent a lot of time we spent at the beach. And there were those fishermen bringing in like those old wooden ships. They brought in like their harvest, and it was so fascinating to me what they took out of this vast ocean, and yeah, I think that had a huge and a deep influence since my childhood, that to see that, like, I mean, the man just tiered out those huge boats. They had to put some wooden, how do you call, from the trees, the stem.
Oh, right, yeah. The
Yeah,
trunks of the trees kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so huge trunks in front of the ship that they could tear it out the ocean. Like, it's like hard, really hard work, and just me as a 5-year-old just watching the scenery, and it was like pure, really pure, like humanity in its purest somehow, like really. And then the whole village came, and they shared all the fish. It was just a huge pile of fish, and they all took what they needed, and in the end there was nothing left, just the smell of the fish.
Yeah.
And that's like it really struck me. I don't know, it's in my core, I think.
Yeah, this vessel which feeds all of the community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just huge wooden ships,
Yeah. Because I mean, I've seen a lot of whales as well that you've drawn. So it's obviously, that's what I meant about the aquatic scenes, because I've seen that you've coloured really quite bright. And well, I say bright, it's still your palette, but because it's underwater, there's an opportunity for a lot of different colours for different species of aquatic life. And then I've obviously seen a lot of your illustrations have whales, and I love the grandiose kind of the spectacle of the scale of a full grown, or even an infant whale, or so I think things like that, and your combination of, because you use stippling, but you don't use it to necessarily create texture. Well, it is kind of a texture, I suppose, but it's more because I like how you use stippling, because it's more the spaces in between the dots. And obviously you see a lot of people do it where you can't even tell it's stippling because it's used to create the image, as opposed to, I suppose it's the way that I admire that you use it. It's kind of, it almost suggests a form kind of thing, is the way that you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's not cross hatching, it's just stippling.
Yeah.
I did this this book, Deep Sea Anglerfish, where I wanted to get, this is how I self-study, I do like an intensive series of some particular things in a row, like those this deep sea anglerfish, for example. I did one every day, one fish every day, and I just started it pretty randomly, not thinking about doing a book in the end, just because I wanted to learn how to do those pointillism, just to learn the technique. And it quickly went out of my hand. The whole project, I realized how many different fish, deep sea anglerfish, are actually existing, and then it was clear I wanted to draw all of them, and there is no book containing all of those fish. There is no drawn in one style, to be precise. It's just sometimes pretty old pictures of one of those fish, or then a shitty drawing, and then a good drawing, and I just wanted to draw them all in one style to learn myself that technique. And this is how I if you do it every day, you learn pretty quickly, I figured.
Was there anyone that you used as a kind of benchmark, a standard, who you said, anyone who you'd say this, as far as pen and ink, this is a real high standard of art? Or
Well, yeah, I mean, there is Möbius, Jean-Giraud.
absolutely,
I mean, he's like the master himself. I mean, it's really crazy. Also, he uses the pointillism technique as well. But he uses it very distinctively, like only in certain areas, and also only in certain like worlds he builds, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, this was always like the top of the top. And of course, I wanted to learn it, and to learn it the way he does. But then I quickly realized, while copying it, I realized what it actually is, like how it works, and it my path was no longer to copy it, but to figure it out myself.
How would you explain that to, anyone, how it works? What have you kind of gleaned as far as your studies there?
I think if you visually studied something long enough, you get a feeling for it, and then you have to train your muscle memory, your muscles to just. It's not a thought; it's actually more like a feeling to replicate that feeling. It's more like if you have like the apple, for example, then if you know how you have to stipple those dots, and then you do it exactly like that, I mean, it just goes wrong, because you want to copy an image that you have in your head, or something like that. But if you, at least for me, if I then go after my guts and just go for the feeling of it, because if I imagine the apple, it's not like I see the apple, it's more like I feel it, because I don't want to texture it just to texture it, but I want to somehow recreate it, even though it's just a texture I am able to draw. But it's really difficult to explain. To me, drawing is more like, it's not drawing after a picture I have in my head, but more, and also not, it's really about picturing a feeling I have of something. And that's what I find wonderful about drawing. When I draw something, it's more like picturing a feeling or the essence of something, than much more than just picturing something like I have in my head, or like, I don't know, a house or a human. It's more like the feeling of what's inside. Yeah,
it sounds like learning balance, like the balance of what works and what a preference, almost like to train an intuition, so that as soon as you can intuit something, you can interpret it more truly than what you would trying to copy something as accurately as possible, or trying to replicate an imagined thing. Is that kind of what it sounds like?
Pretty much.
Trying to kind of project that feeling becomes a trained knowledge that you earn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it goes into my way of drawing in general. I think it's, if I want to draw something really bad, exactly how it looks, I most certainly go to mess it up. I think it's, I realize it when I draw it. I mean, I do a lot of I use a lot of references as well when I draw, and even then, if I want to copy it, I just mess it up. If I don't get the essence of what I'm going to draw or what I want to draw, if I'm not getting the essence of it, like the feeling, like I said before, I always mess it up. During the process, I sometimes just the feeling of the essence of the object I'm about to draw, or which I'm drawing. Sometimes just the feeling emerges out of somewhere, and then it works. But if it's not there, it's not going to be a good drawing. I can't. It's really to separate it from copying something. I rather have to recreate it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Even if it looks like a copy, then even if I draw a portrait or a figure, or I don't know, like a building, it becomes much more alive when I understand, or if I get the essence of the objects. When I get that, then it goes into the right direction.
There's a lot you have to channel for that, because of when you're a comic book artist, it's everything. Because I noticed in the new issue how you have a cat in there as well, and I thought, I wonder if you have a cat that you use as a reference, or if because cats aren't always the easiest thing to draw, because they're almost like liquid sometimes. They can just,
like kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's terrible to draw. No, for that I use photo reference. In comics, to me, it's more like it's about the scene, and not so much about the drawing itself.
I see.
It's more about the feeling you get, or I have, when I imagine, or when this scene appeared in my head. I want you to have the same experience I had when this scene showed up in my head. This is what's all about.
On this latest issue, I was impressed with the first 9 pages not having any dialogue at all, no text whatsoever. Was that it was obviously a deliberate choice, but was that something which took additional planning to do storytelling without text?
That's a good question. No, it also just appeared to me that this is how it is, because it's a really silent scene, and I mean, she is completely alone except the cat and later the dogs, but and there was one. Then originally I was planning to do like a short dialogue, or not a dialogue, just some sentences she said to the dogs. But then I thought then it was by purpose that I just cancel those words, because I wanted, like, the first words spoken had to be from Paul, the other guy who found her, while she's watching all the corpses, to have those words much more impact. And like, I mean, there's like this cruel scene, and she's like almost ripped out of kind of a trance she's in, also the reader, and then those words like have a much greater impact. And then that was by purpose.
How did you come up with the idea for the story for the fall?
It was 2016. There was this horrible Ebola outbreak in Central Africa. And to me, it was kind of strange how people here reacted, like in the West, like in Europe. Everything, people, I mean, it's kind of normal, but also to me, it's really strange how people just think the way, not so much after COVID actually, but before COVID, like everything, how we live, how our daily life looks like, it's like granted, like it's just, this is how it is. And I mean, most of the time in human history, it's just not like that. And I wanted to kind of not show, but to put our life in relation to other people's life who don't live in Europe or in the West.
Okay, that is the episode done. Now, I thought he was such a nice guy to talk to. What an amazing guest. He really did share a lot of his insights as to how he made his work and his background. Our conversation was almost twice as long as the episode, so I had to cut it down just for the flow. And also, this is only going to be the first part of the episode. I'm going to release the second part next week because it was an hour-long conversation. Now, I'm going to start uploading these in full on my Good Values Podcast channel. That will be linked in the description below this video and below every podcast upload that I do on this channel. I'll only do shorter versions because I think that people quite like the half-hour time slot for the podcast. But if you want to watch the full conversations, I'll have those in the other channel, in the description below. So check those out. Check out all of his social media. Please go and check out his Instagram. He's got a fantastic account where he uploads sketches, final pieces, and all kinds of updates on his stories, and it really is worth checking out. He's got a fantastic account on there. And also support him on Patreon if you can, because he does deserve it. He's a very hard-working person and he's such a nice guy to talk to. I think he's one of those artists who I'd like to see get all of the support from the community that he deserves. And aside from that, he's got a YouTube channel that's only small. I mean, you mentioned these things, but I've got all the links there, so they're in the description below. And outside of that, anything that you want to purchase of his products are in the BlackYard Shop, which will also be linked in the description. I really appreciate him coming on. He was such a treat to talk to. I hope to speak to him again in the future, but there we are. That is episode 1 done. Thanks for watching. See you next time.